Welcome back for part 2 of the top 10 countries with the happiest people on Earth. In part 1, we found out that some of the happiest people in the world are Swedes, Aussies, Kiwis, and Nederlanders in ascending order of happiness. But all these pretenders to the smiling throne will be obliterated by the unstoppable tsunami of happiness that you're about to face in part 2. Posing in at number 6 in our pilled-up countdown of happy people, this country is sorry for not beating number 6 through 10. But they're extra happy to be included on the list. Sorry. It's Canada! Sorry. Canada, the United States, United States. Canadians have all the textbook reasons to be happy, including a strong safety net, gender equality, and being the birthplace of Leslie Nielsen. Everyone in Canada learns English and French, except for the French Canadians, who learn French and mange de la mad, canqui. Yeah, they're not always the happiest Canadians. Canada stands out for being the most educated country on Earth, with over half of the country's population having earned bachelor's degrees. Out of them, 40% graduate with no college debt whatsoever, which would definitely make me happy. That means Canadians have more disposable income to suck the sap out of some maple trees and chief those heady BCs. Man. Which brings us neatly to our last Canadian smile-inducing virtue, diversity. Canadians enjoy welcoming people from all over the world to come live in their more sparsely populated regions. It's the reason Canada has its first race and gender representative government, and the reason Canadians have the courage to embrace other cultures, just like popular Canadian rapper Snow. Well, we hope you've had enough of not talking about Scandinavia, because my burner's ringing and we got a date in Lapland. Yes, it's Finland calling in at number 5. What's that? Finland also wants you to know that it's in Fennoscandia, not Scandinavia. So I guess Finns are happy all the time because they're a bunch of know-it-alls. While the Finns aren't usually thought of as a happy people, their national pastime seems to be having social anxiety, these neighborly northerns actually have a lot to smile about. For one thing, Finland might only have 5.5 million people living there, but those people have over 3 million saunas. So if social anxiety is your thing, getting naked alone in a hot wooden room would probably be right up your alley. And while Finns are relaxing in their sweet cubicles, they can float away on the tender melodies provided by Finland's thousands of heavy metal bands. The steam really loosens up your neck for headbanging! We're not going too far for the 4th happiest country in the world, because if I had it my way, number 4 would be Norway. And it is, so that's good. Famously happy Norwegians include the painter Edvard Munch, who painted The Scream, and popular musician Shagrath, who released the hit albums Alive in Torment and World Misanthropy. Norway has a lot in common with its Scandinavian neighbors Denmark and Sweden, who traded the North Atlantic nation back and forth from war to war until the 19th century. Skip forward to the 20th century and independent Norway is floating up to her lutefisk in crude oil. Petrodollars now pay for many Norwegian luxuries, such as free education, universal internet access for prisoners, and taco dinners every Friday. But the country has a famously egalitarian flair that keeps the smiles high. Norway's King Olav V is famous for using Oslo's public transportation and always paying his fare, like a common duke or baron. If you just said, more Scandinavian countries, please, I can't get enough of them, then the number 3 happiest country is just what you're bjorking for. It's Iceland. Iceland is a small, treeless, volcano-infested hunk of putrid sulfur, inconveniently located in the North Atlantic. The country's main tourist attraction is a pool of runoff from a geothermal power plant, deceptively called the Blue Lagoon. Icelanders also have the longest work week in Europe, strip clubs are illegal, and the national dish is raw puffinheart. With all that in mind, it's hard to understand how Icelanders out-happy all but 2 other countries in the world. Well, it all comes down to 2 factors. 1, high satisfaction with the country's government, which has been a democracy since the year 930 AD. And 2, their national strategic reserve of Bjork and other pop artists. To understand the first happy factor, democracy, consider that after the 2008 financial collapse, while the US and Europe were giving their bankers golden parachutes, Iceland threw theirs in jail. Now that sounds to me like a government that represents the people, you think? Then, of course, there's the pride of Iceland, Bjork. Or if you work in a sustainable fair trade coffee shop and enjoy judging people, then Sigurus. Either way, freaky music keeps Icelanders sane during those long, lonely winters. Hey, good news! We're almost at the number 1 happiest country in the world. But before we get there, I just need to pop by the bank and deposit this Nazi gold. Because you guessed it, the #2 happiest country is Switzerland. Yes, Switzerland, where the famous Swiss chocolate is grown on Swiss cocoa plantations high in the Alps, where dogs are given little barrels of booze to schlep off into the mountains so weary travelers can die drunk. And Switzerland, where every bridge, tunnel, and mountain pass is wired to explode at a moment's notice. True fact. Despite Switzerland's declared neutrality, when asked how happy they were, most Swiss responded, "Sehr glücklich," except for the French-speaking Swiss who said, "Tête mieux." We don't get it. Finally, we're here, we made it! The happiest country on Earth. I'm so happy that after this we don't need to talk about Scandinavia or their stupid happy people ever again. I'm jumping for joy. So, let's get this over with. It's Denmark, okay? Oh, they are so freaking happy. Just look at this music video from Danish pop band Whom Made Who. Whoop-de-doo. Famously happy Danes include Lars von Trier, who makes dogma films where the actors really punch each other. And King Frederick VIII of Denmark, who died alone on a park bench. So there it is. Danes are happier than you. They're definitely happier than me. They're all just living it up over there, playing with Legos and throwing cinnamon on unmarried women. Fan-freaking-tastic. Well, that's all for the top 10 countries with the happiest people on Earth. You know, I feel I've been talking about happy people for so long, I'm about ready to punch the next smiling pedestrian who walks by. Maybe I'll go visit Denmark. I feel like they could be taken down a peg or two. Yeah. Good night!